Stencils appear on the left hand side of your screen, and we've worked with a number of stencils. I'm just going to hit the X here to remove a previous search for the shape star. What we have here are the stencils that apply to a basic flowchart diagram. So we have the basic flowchart shapes, and we have the cross-functional flowchart shapes, and we have quick shapes. So we're given 3 stencils by default. But you can in fact ask for more stencils just by going to more shapes. By going to more shapes, you can then go to business, engineering, flowchart, etc. And inside of each of these categories are more subcategories and more stencils. So there are actually a lot of stencils that come with Microsoft Visio, and you can call them up and send them away at any time. So if I happen to be doing a map or a floor plan, I could go to, say, a building plan and ask for office furniture, and if I click that, then I get an extra stencil for office furniture. And you can bring up as many stencils as you like and simply move between those stencils by clicking on the stencil's name. Now the other thing you can do is you can actually search as well, and we've done that before when we search for a star. Just type a keyword and press enter, and it will find any shapes that have the word star in its name. And you can actually scroll down and you'll actually see there's a lot of stars. But we also used the example of a cross in an earlier video where we search for cross. And then if I hit the X, then it simply returns me to seeing the default stencils. So you can also search for shapes. If you don't have the search shapes option at the top, then you may have to go to, it should actually appear there. In some versions you actually have to turn it on, but yours should actually just appear there. If not, go under more shapes and make sure that search shapes is turned on, but you have got that. The other thing you've got is the ability to right click a stencil name, and then you can ask to view the stencil in a variety of ways. The stencils are currently showing with an icon and a name, but you might decide to have the names under the icons. So here we have here, it takes up a bit more space. You can right click and return to view, and you can say you want icons only, or you could right click and say that you wanted to view icons and details. But I'm going to return it to the default, which is under view and just icons and names. So when you right click the name of a stencil, you can control the view. You can also control the order in which the stencils are listed. You can also make it float, and you can even close that stencil. So if I didn't want the office furniture, I could close it. If I right click again, you can even save a stencil as a different name. So let's have a look at actually creating your very own stencil. So I'm going to go to more shapes, and I'm going to go for a new stencil, metric. And I might then drag some shapes into this stencil to make it have shapes. So I might drag this shape into it. Oops, excuse me. And drop it. And there it is there. And so I'll right click it and I'll edit the master's properties, edit master, master properties, and I will call it the fragment. And OK. And so that becomes the name of that shape. I'll then drag this shape into my stencil, and I will right click it and go to edit master and master properties, and I'll call it combine. And OK. I'll then click this shape, drag it into my stencil, and right click it, edit master, master properties, and call it union. If I then do want a star, I will search my shapes for, say, a star. I will then, once it's loaded, I will then find the star I'm after, maybe this star, and drag it into my page. I might then stretch it. I might then go out of my search, X, and then add that star into my stencil, right click, edit master, master properties, and call it star. So you can add as many shapes as you want to your own stencil. So I may then go and grab some basic flowchart shapes, and I might decide I want a decision and a process to be added to my stencil, decision and process. And right click, edit master, master properties, and say this is a decision. And right click this and edit master, master properties, and this is a process. Once I've added all the shapes that I want to add to my stencil, I've got a little save option here. And I'm going to save the stencil as Cathi. So I'll hit the save button, I'll type Cathi, and I might put it on my desktop. So you can put it anywhere that you can easily locate it. Now a stencil in 2010 is a VSS file, and a stencil in 2016 is a VSSX file. So it's a separate type of file. So I'm just going to save it. And so I've created, and you can see it here, a stencil called Cathi. And it means that I can then email that Cathi VSS file to anybody who I want to share that stencil with and say, look, these are the shapes that we use for that diagram, to save them having to search for certain shapes. So if I was to close the stencil and say somebody emailed me that stencil file, I would simply go to More Shapes and open a stencil. And I would go and find that VSS or VSSX file. Now the one I created is actually on the desktop, so I'll go to the desktop, and there it is there. And I'll open it. And so then that stencil appears. So you can create a stencil that goes with a drawing file, and you can email them not only the drawing file but the stencil as well, so that they have all the relevant shapes for that type of drawing. So it's very easy to switch between stencils, to manipulate stencils, to create your own stencils.